for our 17-18 budget. Let the record reflect that all school board members are in attendance except for Mr. Bauer, Mrs. Beeman, Dr. Griffin, and Ms. Moramis are here. And Dr. Griffin, I will turn it over to you.
Mr. Kelly, can you give us a quick overview?
I'll be happy to. Let me begin, before I present the materials, by announcing that we are not increasing taxes above the rollback rate. In fact, we'll be 7.93% below the rollback rate. But what I would like to do is take a minute and just hit a few points that I think are important about our budget, so I think I'm the one supposed to do that. The first thing for members of the audience is it's important to know that we're reducing our millage rates by almost 1 mil. We're saving the taxpayers in the county roughly $15.9 million. So millage rate last year was 7.557 mils. This year, if adopted tonight, it'll be 6.569 mils, a reduction of 13.07%. But the question frequently is, what do you do with the money? I hear that all the time. Are you an efficient steward of our resources? I don't know how to measure that exactly, but I think a good way to measure it is how much money do we put in our programs? And I think our most important programs, the amount we spend on our classrooms for instruction. And if you turn on the next slide, you'll see the percentage of our budget spent in the classroom in instruction compared to our surrounding school districts and to the state as a whole. For 2015-16, the most recent data the state has published, we put 65.9% of our spending. This isn't our budget, this is based on our actual results in the classroom out of the general fund. Counties around us average 62.19, with the highest, the closest to us would be Volusia. The difference between ourselves and the surrounding counties is 3.71%, which doesn't seem like much, but on a $450 million budget, that's a lot of money. The state average is 61.9% of the budget is spent on classroom instruction, so the state doesn't do as well as the surrounding counties, so we're almost 4% above the state. Contrast that with the amount we spend on administration, an area that frequently upsets the public. Our administrative costs, we look at the school administration and the district administration, runs 10.36%. The state, our average of our comparable districts is 11.7%. We're better by 1.37, and we spend less than the state average of 11.29, also by almost 1%. Something else that comes up all the time is how do we spend our money outside of just are we putting in the classroom? And there's a chart, there's a little dollar graph that we use. And what it shows is that we spend 63.2% of our budget on salaries, 21.4% on benefits. So if you add the two together, that's 84.6% of our budget is on salaries and benefits. The vast majority of that, of course, is for teachers and school administrators. Then after that, we have increasingly small amounts, 6.2% for purchase services, energy is 3.4%, materials and supplies is 4.6%, and other capital outlays 1.4%. So when we have a budget problem, when something happens and we're forced to cut our budget, really the only place we have to go is salaries and benefits. So that's a very quick overview. The only other thing I'd like to mention, because I always want to keep this in our mind, is going back to our millage. Our capital outlay millage at 1.5 mils is the same as it has been for many years, but that amount is on average 28% per student less than the state average. So one disadvantage that Seminole County's public schools has is in trying to maintain our facilities and buy buses at a level of service acceptable to us with funding that's so much lower than the rest of the districts in the state. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I thought those would be interesting facts for you to know and for the public to hear.
I have received no comment cards from the community. If anyone is here to address the budget and you would like to address the board or have questions for staff, there are forms on the back of the table. This time would be only for addressing the budget as a part of our final public hearing. If you have other comments or questions related to our board meeting later this evening, those forms are on the back table as well. One else. All right, board members, time for discussion. Any questions? Comments?
I just want to thank you, Mr. Kelly. You and your staff are always very, very responsive to our many questions, and I appreciate, I try not to reach out to any of the administrators on the weekend if I don't need to, but you're always willing to take a call or return an email when we're off, and I thank you very much for that.
I'd like to do that. Thank you so much. You're very patient with me. Thank you.
I guess just a generic comment for those in the public who think this is a very quick meeting. This is actually just the culmination of a year's worth of work in many, many hours that we as a board, days and weeks and months as a staff, and especially Mr. Kelly, you and your team, we appreciate you dotting all the I's and crossing the T's and asking our many questions. And I hope our citizens, if this does indeed pass, are very excited about the lowering of the millage.
I echo everything that's been said. I think one of the things that I've learned over the course of the last several years is that in Seminole County Public Schools, we tend to be a victim of our own success. I served on a panel discussion this last weekend, maybe it was 2 weekends ago, with Representative Cortez down at Shingle Creek, and there were people from all over the state in the audience, and I made the comment that about our rank in funding, state funding, that we're 61st.
I think we're at 62nd now, is that right?
So out of
It
60.
is 61, he tells us, so you're right. yes.
Okay, so out of Florida's 67 counties, we rank 61 in state funding, and yet we are one of very few A-rated school districts in the state of Florida. So I think we have to give all of that credit to our great team, our teachers, our families, because we really have done a lot with very little. And to your credit and everyone who has worked so hard at making sure that this budget is what is necessary, and there's not a whole lot of extra goodies in this, as much as we would like to be able to do a lot more. I'm very proud of what we've been able to do with what is reflected in this budget, so thank you.
I really am a little embarrassed to accept your thanks because actually Raj Khatri and Jenny Bracco are responsible for most of this budget, and I thank them for their efforts and their weekends and frankly for their diligence. They act like this, it's their own money, which is it's a good place to be with your staff.
Absolutely. All right. Dr. Griffin, do you have a recommendation for the board then?
Yes, Madam Chair. That's going to be two separate recommendations and votes this evening. The first one is that the School Board of Seminole County adopt resolution number 2017-06, determining revenues and millages levied.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
And my second recommendation is that the School Board of Seminole County adopt resolution number 2017-07, adopting the final budget for fiscal year 2017-18.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Very much. All right. We'll close out our budget public hearing, and we will reconvene in 5 minutes for the school board meeting.